What is happening for those that are not aware at the end of September?
By 30 September, two regulations are coming into effect. So the first one is the determination on the conduct of electronic fund transfers in the national payment system, that is known as PSD9. And the second regulation is a directive on the speed and user fees and charges on common monetary area transactions, which will also become then effective on the 30th of September. So those two regulations will come into force at the same time.
99 FM, your inspiration station. It is Script in the afternoon. Now, on the 30th of September 2024, the determination on the conduct of electronic fund transfers within the national payment system, also known as PSD9, will become effective. Now, in studio, we have Henock Shilongo, who is the technical expert of the National Payment System and Financial Surveillance Department from the Bank of Namibia, just here to tell us more on these regulatory changes. Henock, welcome to 99 FM.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Now, the end of September, we just spoke about how quickly September is flying, so these changes are coming faster than we may even know. What is happening for those that are not aware at the end of September?
Right. So by 30 September, two regulations are coming into effect. So the first one is the determination on the conduct of electronic fund transfers in the national payment system, that is known as PSD9. And the second regulation is a directive on the speed and user fees and charges on common monetary area transactions, which will also become then effective on the 30th of September. So those two regulations will come into force at the same time.
And what is the aim of these regulations?
So PSD9, the first determination that I spoke about, so there are two. So one is a determination, one is a directive. But they are both regulations, and they both impact how people can do cross-border payments between Namibia, the CMA, SADC, etc. So PSD9 regulates how EFT transactions must be processed within the country, and how cross-border transactions between Namibia, the rest of SADC and CMA should be processed. PSD9 says that domestic EFT transactions must be processed within Namibia, and cross-border transactions must be processed through regional or international payment systems. And this is mainly to prohibit the practice whereby EFT transactions from Namibia to other CMA countries are treated as South African transactions. So in the past, what used to happen was that when you make a payment from Namibia to South Africa, that payment is being treated as a South African payment. So it's not treated as a Namibian payment going to South Africa. It's treated as though it just happened in South Africa. So that practice is being done away with, because Namibian transactions must be seen as cross-border payments by the regulators.
And that's now when it comes to, for example, payments in those transactions. But I just want to forward here to the debit orders and how that will be affected. Debit orders to and from South Africa, how will that be impacted?
So because the banks are phasing out the EFT solution, debit orders between Namibia and the rest of the CMA will also cease to exist, right? Because the entire EFT system is being replaced with a SWIFT payments that will go through the SADC payment system, right? So the new solution does not have the capability for EFT debit orders, so those will be phased out. So meaning you will no longer be able to be deducted from South Africa for a service that you're either consuming in Namibia or cross-border. So one of the reasons why debit orders was phased out, so it's unfortunate that the non-compliant debit orders that are being phased out are also taking with the compliant debit orders, because it's one system. So it cannot be switched on only for the compliant debit orders. So Namibian insurance company and you sign up for a life cover, right? You sign a mandate with the Namibian insurance company and you agree that they may deduct from your account on a monthly basis. The deduction was being made by a South African bank and not a Namibian bank. And you can see where I'm going with this, that, the service you're consuming is Namibian, but the money is going to South Africa. So that's not supposed to be the case. The Namibian banks are supposed to be deducting you for that debit order, and that is being done away with by PSD9.
And it has to be a blanket view on it, because it can't, like you said, there are pros and cons, I guess. There
are pros and cons because it's one solution. So you would have debit orders that are legit. You are a Namibian. You sign up for a service in South Africa, and you give the mandate to the South African company to deduct from you. That one was fine, right? Because the service you're consuming is in South Africa. But because now the solution is one solution that the banks were using, so for them to stop the debit orders that are not allowed, they then had to stop the entire solution, and that impacted. So what some of the banks have now done is that you are able to do scheduled payments, like stop order payments, to whoever it is you are supposed to pay in South Africa for legit, payments that you owe South African companies.
And now, I'm sure some people will be disgruntled, unfortunately, here and there. But if we had to take a eagle eye approach to this now from the bank's perspective, I mean, the changes are a result of PSD9, but why did Bank of Namibia introduce PSD9?
Yeah, so apart now from the challenges that I've mentioned around debit orders and the wrong classification of Namibian transactions being South African transactions, there were a few regulatory concerns with these transactions. So first of all, these transactions were not reported to the regulators, that being the Bank of Namibia as the payments regulator, as the exchange control regulator, as well as the Financial Intelligence Center. So we could not see what the purpose of the funds were when they move from Namibia to South Africa, because the systems that the banks were using were sort of treating this. It was like a South African system. So me as a regulator could not see why is a company in Namibia paying a company in South Africa. So there were also issues of tax that could not be levied properly. There were also issues around invoicing of imports and exports. What is the true value that you are paying vis-a-vis the goods that you are getting? So all that was quite difficult to see with the current EFT solution. So PSD9 simply told the banks that categorize these transactions accordingly, so that we can have better visibility in these transactions. And that is the stance that the banks took, to say that, look, to comply with the bank's regulation, we are going to move these transactions to SWIFT. So it is not the bank that said they must move to SWIFT. We simply just said, make sure that these transactions become compliant to the regulation and use appropriate regional payment infrastructure to route these transactions.
And this all comes into effect on the 30th of September.
So yes, but what the banks have done proactively is to implement a phased approach in how customers can already start interacting with the new payment solutions. So most of the banks have already, from the 9th of September, opened up the new channels for their clients to be able to use the new way of making payments to South Africa, which now also requires their clients to provide the purpose of the payment, the information of the beneficiary on the other side, which was not the case in the previous EFT system. So between the 9th and the 15th, the banks have already committed to go live on the new system while already phasing out the old system, so that by 30th September, they just comply and the customers are not adversely impacted.
Everything you need to know. I told you we have a special guest, and if there was any confusion, now there is clarity, and the things will be done differently. And once again, It's a give or take, necessary steps, and a few disgruntled people, but that will eventually it will all come together and make sense. I believe so.
Yes. So what we have done to lessen the blow to the public, you'll recall in the beginning I spoke about the directive on speed and cost. So that directive aims to inform the banks that provide this service to say that, look, do not process these payments in more than 2 days when they come in, and you may not charge more than $20 for inward pay for outward payments, and do not charge more than $25 for inward payments. This is to ensure that the banks do not, charge exorbitant fees for clients because they are moving to a new solution. So in that way, we are trying to lessen the blow and also maintain the customer experience from the old EFT system.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you shedding light on it. I know it scared a lot of people, but this should bring them a sense of peace. If you are listening right now, you are tuned into 99 FM with Script in the Afternoon. That was Henock Shilongo, a technical expert of the National Payment System and Financial Surveillance Department from the Bank of Namibia. Thank you so much, Henock.
Thank you.